What is cheap right now but will become expensive in the near future? Vanilla has already more than doubled in price since 2015. There was a hurricane or something that wiped out most of the crop in Madagascar, which is where the vast majority of vanilla comes from. About a decade ago I bought a 16 ounces bottle of Fancy Pants Vanilla Bean Crush, aka vanilla paste, basically a syrup form of vanilla extract, for a little over $20. Nowadays that same amount would run you at least $60. Alcohol-based extract is generally cheaper than paste, but still way more expensive than it was as little as 6 years ago. I read about vanilla prices a while ago. The money farmers made wasn't very competitive, so a lot of them shifted to growing other crops. During this time there was such a huge shortage that the price went through the roof. That same bottle of pure vanilla extract from Costco that was $6.99 in 2011 is $30.99 in fall/winter of 2020. I feel like the biggest nerd paying attention to vanilla prices of all things, but I bake a lot of cakes for friends and family members, so it's interesting to watch it change. The most recent price I saw was last week for $15.99, same 16 ounces bottle. If you're anywhere near a Williams-Sonoma outlet store, I'd recommend trying to find vanilla there. Williams-Sonoma only carries Nielsen Massey Vanilla, which is arguably the fanciest brand of vanilla available in the US, but their outlet stores will often offer it at a deep discount. Vanilla has an absurdly long shelf life, so it's not bad/out of date either. I was able to get a 4 ounces bottle of vanilla paste from a WS outlet for like $12, $14, in contrast to its more typical price of about $24 per bottle. I can't say enough about Nielsen Massey Tahitian Vanilla. I bought a variety pack a while back that had Tahitian, Madagascar, and Mexican vanilla in it. Oh my god, the Tahitian vanilla is to die for. It's an entirely different and more complex flavor than Madagascar vanilla. I believe Tahitian vanilla is best used in something that is served cold. Many mass producers of wine have shifted to synthetic corks or twist-offs. The stigma of twist-offs is already few years gone unless you're drinking something with a bit more age to it. When done correctly, cork is often more environmentally sustainable than alternative stoppers for wine actually. Farmed properly they're renewable, carbon negative, provide habitat for endangered species, and don't use a lot of the toxic chemicals involved in plastic or metal production. But the big growing use of cork these days is flooring, furniture items, and other objects much larger than wine stoppers anyways. Really, cork isn't as good for wine as the other options, however cork as flooring, message boards, and such hasn't fallen by the wayside. Sadly, even if all wine went corkless, cork is used in many ways. From memory, cork is actually supposed to be a really useful material. I saw somewhere say that it can be harvested without destroying the trees, and if it was managed a bit better would be a really good sustainable material. It's also great replacement for heaps of other materials, but isn't widely used because companies would rather save a few extra cents on a less sustainable resource. You are correct. Cork production isn't harmful for the tree, and these trees are protected by law, at least in Portugal, if not in the entire EU. Basically, if you have one of these trees in your backyard, you can't cut it or take it down. Option is to get a legal authorization, and often for a tree to get taken down, more than one must be planted. English name is a bit silly, cork oak, but if you search for sobrero you will see the barks cuts. Because they can be taken every 9 to 10 years, less than a decade, last digit of the year is painted on the tree. Owning devices. Companies are lobbying hard to fight right to repair legislation that would make it so you can't actually fix your own devices or have a repair shop do it for you. It's already pretty bad with companies like Apple, Tesla, and John Deere. They design stellar products, but if anything goes wrong with them, you're almost always going to be told to buy a new one, Apple, or to ship your heavy-ass piece of machinery both ways for days to weeks to have it repaired when you should otherwise be able to do it yourself. Farmers are moving back to ancient tractors since they can fix them themselves and get parts for a reasonable price, or they're using bootleg Polish JD software to bypass the DRM in their tractors so they can actually fix these things in a timely manner. Sometimes having a $100 sensor break in your tractor can cost you upwards of $5,000 with shipping, rigging, and labor. Not to mention a potentially lost harvest if it takes too long to fix. My sister's boyfriend is a main dealer agricultural mechanic for Fendt. He was called out by a farmer to a combine that would start, run for a second then cut out, which was strange because it worked fine the day before and they'd done a lot of work the previous day. He jumped up into the combine and plugged in the diagnostics machine. A code came up that just said call office. So he phoned Fendt UK, who told him that the farmer had missed his payment on the combine, so it had been shut down by head office. So his combine in the knee of Scotland had been remotely disabled by Fendt in Germany because he hadn't paid up. After watching Clarkson's farm and just watching the sheer agony farmers go through on a yearly basis. Maybe to an extent the show is a little dramatized. My hatred for what John Deere does makes my head explodes. Farmers literally don't have the time to wait for a rep to come and fix their tractor. They always need their stuff working to not only have them provide for themselves but to be a serving backbone for society. I didn't realize so much food I buy is so reliant on farmers. To all the farmers out there, I appreciate you and keep on doing good for the world. I read an article sometime back that a man with a small parts shop had his business increase several times over when this stuff started to happen. He's making money hand over fist by selling old parts for old equipment. My boyfriend works at a, once, small company that repairs everything you throw at them. Their customer base is 90% farmers with old tractor things, or newer tractors where they are asked to replace the software and various bits and bobs that make it harder to fix yourself. Their bills are sky high, but the bills from the official manufacturers are up in space, so it's worth it. It makes me so mad that lobbying is allowed and that people can't repair their own things. We have Deere products where I work and we tried to use a part from our old Bobcat skid steer on the Deere and it wouldn't work without some kind of adapter that we had to get from Deere. It's kinda a global scale issue right now. Poor people just can't afford ecological stuff. My dad always mentioned that he'd buy electric heating system for the house, electric car, solar panels, etc. if they were actually affordable in a lifetime. Now he's stuck using 20+ years furnace that runs on wood and unburnable trash, 20+ year car, some old ass tractor, and actually he got subsidies for the solar panels, so that's nice. I didn't realize so much food I buy is so reliant on farmers. I grew up on a farm, so this comment kind of blows my mind. Did you grow up in the city? Or perhaps that so much of the process was automated now? The disconnect between people and where their food comes from has really grown. Fewer people work in agriculture these days. I didn't grow up on a farm, but I've had the benefit of getting into FFA and pursuing an ag-based major in college, which is the only reason I'm not as ignorant as most people where I'm from. Not the op, but I'll answer to as I kind of understand. Growing up nowhere near a farm, the only time farmers ever really crossed my mind was when I used to see boxes of carrots, potatoes, onions, etc. at the store. It never really crossed my mind growing up and well into my teens that farmed produce is used in practically everything, even stuff like microwave meals. Basically, unless it was a raw vegetable or fruit or something of that sort, it doesn't cross my mind that the stuff used to make it probably came from a farm. I would say for me that it wasn't so much that I didn't associate farming/farmers with the food I ate, but rather that I didn't realize what went into farming. Watching Clarkson's farm was such an eye-opener. To me, seeds go in ground, nature takes its course, food comes out. Sure, weather can affect it and sometimes a harvest is better or worse than others, but in general that was my understanding of it. I never realized how much pressure farmers were under. Get the seeds in the ground in the right time, make sure they have enough water, not too much water, then harvest when they are dry enough, but not too dry and so on. That's to say nothing of the technical aspects to farming, even down to the tram lines. I can totally respect farmers needing to fix their shit here and now and not wait weeks, or even hours, for someone to come fix something mechanical. Spring 2019 we had a sensor go out on the 220 tractor we used to plant. It was a half-hour fix, but it was computer garbage we couldn't fix ourselves. It took them 3 days to come out and replace it. In that time it started raining, and we couldn't get back in the field for another 2.5 weeks. Because we planted late, the harvest was late, and the corn was too wet. It got too cold to dry the corn in the bin properly, and 15,000 bushels spoiled. Rotten corn won't feed through the unloaded auger, so we had to scoop and eventually vac out the bin. A time loss of hundreds of hours and monetary loss in the thousands, all because of a computer sensor that erroneously thought the tractor was overheating. And this isn't a big corporate farm that can eat such a loss. There's a massive shady company that's going around buying VPN companies, and I think NordVPN is one they've grabbed in the recent past. Independent and truly transparent VPNs are getting fewer by the day. I think aboutwhat and Proton VPN are two of the good ones these days. I've been using TorGuard for years but have no clue what is the current position. It's a real trip to hear YouTubers that have nothing to tech do their sponsored segments on using a VPN with Netflix before launching into their usual ASMR, cooking, etc. I know Netflix hasn't shown interest on region locking yet, but they're the exception in the streaming game. It's in no way illegal to use a VPN to unblock Netflix, but it is technically against toes. I'm just worried that if down the line Netflix cracks down, then tons of YouTubers will have to backpedal on recommending a product for the specific purpose they touted. Games in general, really. Lack of game preservation by companies in recent years, Nintendo just ignoring most of its backlog with the Switch, Sony getting a massive backlash for trying to pull the plug on the PS3 PSN store, which it seems like it won't be the last time they attempt this considering they still went ahead and did that for the PSP despite the backlash, emulation still being stuck in a legal gray area that makes it easy for the sites hosting older games to be taken down, and discs/carts being destroyed due to neglect by owners, are all going to make the used game market insanely expensive. If you have a local retro game store in your area, make sure to support them. They're basically the only ones still making older games remotely affordable.